So now let's work our way back to Chief Financial Officer's report.
Just want to make sure I'm on the right page here. Good evening, Board. Tonight I would like to highlight the February 2018 financials. This represents 8 months or 67% of our fiscal year. The first report that you will find in Board Book on page 13 is the monthly financial report outlining our revenue and expenditures for the month. Total monthly revenue for all funds was roughly $3.5 million. The three main revenue sources that we had for this month were real estate taxes, general state aid, and special education transportation reimbursement. The expenditures for the total month were roughly $2 million. The top three expenditures for the month were salary and benefits, purchase service contracts, and out-of-district tuition. If we look at our operating fund balance at the end of February is approximately $14.2 million. Moving on from the monthly financials to the financial statements, on page 14 is the fund balances of all funds, showing beginning balance plus revenue minus expenditures, giving our ending balance as of February 2018. If we proceed on to the following page, looking at strictly revenue, I'd like the board to focus on funds 10, 20, 40, and 50 as to where these are tracking per what is budgeted versus the actual. They are tracking very nicely on it. The other funds, you will see the percentages are quite different. That has to do with the life safety bonds that were issued and the working cash bond that was issued. As we move to the expenditures and focus on those same funds, the 10, 20, 40, and 50, you will see that we are tracking very nicely compared to what 67% of our budget would be. Once again, just a reminder, in our O&M, we did pay Airmark the full amount of the service contract, so that is the increase therefore of the 84%.
Okay.
The next report in your packet is the revenue and expense report. There were 2 questions submitted. The first question is on Board Book page 17 under prior year revenue. The district is approximately $650,000 higher in the prior year revenue line item. As a reminder, we received $400,000 in tax distribution after June 30th. The additional $200,000 is about the 1% difference that we didn't budget, as we budgeted the 98.5% tax collection. The second question that was on the revenue expense report is on page 18 in Board Book, which is under the Tech Enhancing Education line item. This is the Career and Technical Education Grant. We had expenditures from FY17 totaling $14,000. That was actually reimbursed in August due to the state making late payments. If we move on from the revenue expense report and move into the student activity accounts.
Scott, with that CT&E, just I'm thinking out loud here, so that contributes then to our deficit? Because when we finished the fiscal year at June 30th, that was $14,000, that was unaccounted for.
It would have been part of the
correct?
previous year's deficit.
Okay.
Because that one, on a cash basis, it hit in this current fiscal year.
Okay, so when you budgeted that revenue for this year, you only probably budgeted the 14 or 17 that you're assuming we're going to get this year. So is that account going to come in then?
It depends on when the
Excess of the
state
revenue?
releases it and when we put in for reimbursement with the Des Plaines Valley region.
Okay.
So I budgeted in there what I was told what our allotment was for this current year for 17-18. So that's why it's over
Okay.
over budget on that. Going back to
So besides the real estate taxes that you're going to look at, whether we're changing the way we budget them for next year, why don't you add another item of, other revenue sources where we might get the money because the state's paying late? Because it happens, it seems like it happens
Every grant.
every year.
Every grant,
late.
sometimes it happens with the transportation reimbursement.
So, I think we should look at, besides the real estate taxes, any government payments where we didn't receive it and where we think there's some likelihood we're gonna still receive it in the next fiscal year. And then at least decide whether we want to budget for it or not. Do you agree, Kevin?
Let's take a look at that. We can talk more.
Okay. Okay, if we proceed on to the student activity accounts, there was a question on board book page 46 in regards to the field trip line item. This account is used to pay for student activity field trips during the calendar year. In this case, the district wrote a check to secure a trip which overdrew the account. This was actually for the ski club that went to Wilmot Mountain. We had to pay it up front in order to secure it. Student fees collected for the trip will replenish the overdrawn account. There was a deposit made in March, and the current account balance for the field trip account is actually positive $923. If we move back to my CFO memo, medical insurance update, EBC, based on the primary projections below and the research that I've completed, is my recommendation for the district to remain with EBC at this time. The EBC cooperative provides more stability versus
Scott,
a
what
self-funded.
What board book page though is there? Everybody was flipping to
That's
46.
back to page 11.
Thank you.
Okay.
Once again, EBC provides the stability versus a self-funded plan and provides less risk for rate increases as it includes 109 districts. Overall, EBC provides a district fiscal stability, and we have experienced no concerns in regard to the service we receive. The final rates will be coming out next week, March 21st. So as soon as I get those rates, I will work through Dr. Skinkis and tell him what the actual rates will be for our medical and dental plans. Our technology infrastructure update. Our current internet configuration that we have is AT&T is our primary with 500 megabytes going over fiber, and our backup internet is 150 megabytes over cable. In order to continue to maintain the one-to-one initiative and to keep up with the technology in this building, the future internet configuration will be AT&T still our primary with a 1 gig over fiber, and our Comcast backup will be 500 megabytes over fiber. With these upgrades, the district can now support the phone system over fiber instead of copper lines. Later in your board packet, you will see the telephone proposal to switch our current phone service over to fiber. The last thing I highlighted in the CFO memo is the tax collection update. I did receive notification from the township treasurer that they put taxes that were supposed to be for 2017 in air into 2016. They made an adjustment. It did not hit in last month's. It hit in this current month's. So if you went back and looked at the revenue expense report for prior year taxes, you would see a deduction of roughly $900,000, but that actually was supposed to be for tax year 2017. As far as notification, I get notification from the Cook County Treasurer as to when tax distributions are being released. I also get notification from the Township Treasurer on those tax distributions, and it outlines exactly what tax year that the actual taxes are supposed to be for.
Were there any other questions for that part of your report?
No other questions. Oh, there was, yes.
Okay, what page?
Whatever the example is in board book, page.
While you're going there, if we go to page 17 and you explain the $642,000 that were above the budget for the prior tax levy, what you just were explaining, a $900,000 credit is shown in that line now, right?
It is.
Okay.
At the previous month's board meeting, it was,
$1 million in the plus.
yes, 21% over.
Okay.
And now it dropped down to the 8% over.
Board book, page 50 is the example of how how the notification received from the treasurer's office.
And on that example, it's broken down into townships on there. Just so everyone is aware of this, 21 is Lyons Township, 31 is Proviso, and 34 is Riverside.
So how do they break it down? So if we look at the tax year, so we have 2 credits, we did some refunds for 2013 and 2016.
Mhm.
But how would you know for 2017 whether it's the first installment or second installment?
Anything from 2017 is considered prior year. Because the 2017 levy year, you get the first collection starting in January. So it goes from January up until June 30th, and it would be identified as taxes for 2017.
Yeah, but all kinds of people paid their tax levy early this year because of the change in the federal tax code. So they paid in 2017 in December the first levy for 2018, which is a 2017 tax year. Right?
That is correct.
So how did they show you on here?
This on here, the only thing that I have to work with is tax year 2017,
So then
which
there's
is
two-
my current year.
But there's 2 levies for each tax year, right?
That is correct.
So how do
There could be
you-
multiple, actually.
So when we
No, there's not
prior
more
year.
than 1 levy. There's 2 levies in each year, right?
You have current year and prior year.
Let's
That's-
not talk about the way you're accounting for them. Let's talk about what the county does. We all get our tax bills if we have a property, right?
Yes.
They send everybody 2 tax bills every year.
Mm-hmm.
And each year, you pay the prior year tax bill in the following year. So your 2016 taxes, you paid in 2 installments in 2017, right?
That is correct.
So I'm still, after all 7 years on the board and asking all these questions, I don't understand how you break this down. So when we're saying, if it's a 2017 tax year, those are paid in 2018, right?
Yes.
So what you're saying is
Dollars received are 17.
the dollars received are for the 2017 tax year, but we received, based on this report, in February in 2018, all these payments, right?
That is correct.
Okay. But when we got the report for December of, you get it every month, I think you said. So you got the report in December of 2017. Did it show 2017 payments then?
It was 0.
Which is not possible.
So it was shown in under 16 then?
It was all tax year 16.
So then, we have no way of actually properly allocating the receipts with how we budget for the 2 assessments each year?
All we can do is go off of.
Because you can't even pay your tax bill to the county without giving them the original. They won't even take the money. So they certainly must have a way of tracking that payment with that tax bill, right?
The money we're receiving in this school year is the 2017 levy, correct?
That is correct. That's why it's current year.
So that's why it all says 2017?
That is not correct.
Yes.
In this
That's-
school year, we received the second payment from the 2016 tax year in 2017, which was the first payment in the fall for this school year. Right?
Yes.
That is correct.
So that's why it's so.
So you're
why I keep
wondering why
pushing
the,
it.
Why is it
the
seven?
February
Every
dollars
year-
aren't showing 18? Is that what your question? I mean, Scott's not the treasurer. So
No, I
just
know he
want-
isn't, but I want.
So we wanna understand
cannot
it.
properly budget. We've been struggling with this forever until we can find out how this is done. And the proper thing is, the 2016 tax year, we received 1 payment early in 2017, which is the prior school year, and we received 1 payment later in the year, in August or so, which is the second assessment from 2016, which is in the current school year, and that happens every year. Every year we are getting one payment from the prior year and one payment from 2 prior years. And if they're not breaking it down that way, that is one reason we could never tie those to the budget number with the receipt number, right? But they certainly have the information. You can't pay your bill without it.
All right, well, why don't we get another breakdown from this to get a better understanding, right? Because we approved the levy in December, and we received that first payment in the spring, correct?
Yes.
And so was some of this money from that levy that we approved in
This is
December?
from 17's levy.
So last year's December. The 16 levy? That one that we approved in December of 16, or the one that we approved just last 2 months, 3 months ago? This money that we got right here on this report.
No, this would be from current year. So this
Don't
would
say
be
current year because we
from
don't.
17's levy. This would be roughly
Tax,
55% of that. When it's all said
When you
and
say
done.
17's levy, the December 17th, the one we just approved 3 months
The one that was
ago.
just approved.
So these are people that are we're starting to get money for the March payment now in February.
That is correct.
So this could be some of that money that Tim's saying people paid before December 1st
pre-taxes,
or
yes.
January 1st.
Now, the county could have held the money, I suppose. Maybe they did that.
So the one where they put it in tax year 16 in January, that was actually for tax year 17. So then we had some payment in January, some payment in February, and there was more that came in March.
Okay. I wish.
It's still not easy to
It's-
break it out.
This is what the Cook County Treasurer gives, and this is what our Proviso Township Treasurer is working off of.
Okay. Well, let's continue to look at it, you and I, and see if we could figure out a way to make this a little easier for our budgeting purposes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Whenever I have something complicated and hard to figure out, I like to make a little chart.
Okay.
And it's very difficult to do that in Word. I'm not saying this is easy, but maybe get a chart and just so we can have this. And just make it so we don't have to keep figuring it out each time. We can look at that and say, okay, there's multiple steps here, and if we can simplify it on some type of flow chart, I think it might be helpful. I don't know.
Okay.
Just on like, at least if you see 17, it's really coming from the payment that was made in August of 16. I get what you're saying.
Well, almost like you could say, this is the levy from December 16, this is the amount of money collected off of that levy. It's a levy of 17, it's the amount of money collected off that levy.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that would help us better understand, because then,
And this
if we
goes
see that we
here.
haven't collected all the money, well, we're either not getting it or we're getting it in the following year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that could be worked out in the council, one of your advisory councils?
This comes from the treasurer's office. So I mean, having a chart, me and Scott can easily make you a chart so the board understands it a little better. But I don't think we're gonna have the authority to tell the treasurer's office how we want it.
We can tell them, they're just not gonna
Yeah,
listen.
they're not gonna, right.
Either one of
So
them.
this is how they send us directly, so it's just a matter of, so for better understanding.
They want to keep it fuzzy math.
But I think what Dr. Kane's suggestion is easy sketches for us, and maybe every once in a while we put in the board report. So when they see 17, that's really the payments off the 17 levy that they just approved. Anything that's credited to 16 would be from the tax payments that came in from the August, the second payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's why I think we need to change the way the budget lines are referred to prior. It doesn't really help because at the second installment for each year, there's 3 different years that are being addressed. The assessment year, the receipt year, and the budget year for the district. They're all 3 different years. And I read like prior in that, and I'm still like, okay, well, which one are we talking about here?
No, I understand, and like you said, what I have to work off of, they just add anything that was from the prior year, 16, 15, 14, it all is clumped into that.
All right, well, we'll continue to
So
talk
we'll
with them.
continue to look at it.
Maybe when the new software comes in, they'll be able to do a little better job of assigning a year to it, or at least put on this sheet so we know.
But this is coming, this
That's
is
straight
our,
from-
that's
that's
not
straight
the
from
township
Cook
treasurer.
County.
This is
That's right, from Cook County.
treasurer.
And then our treasurer, Proviso, uses the exact same sheet and distributes the funds based off of the percentages of what that levy was.
Okay. All right, Scott, thank you.
Thank
you.
You got another report. They ain't done yet.
All right.
The hits keep on coming.
It's all right.